We visited a weaver's factory that makes kente cloth, among other things. Many of the crafts that you see in Ghana now look like cheap knockoffs compared to what we were able to get back in the 1960s. But the kente cloth is still authentic, and you can see it being woven. This is the Palace of the Asante Hene, a wonderful Victorian colonial structure put up by the British. We visited a monkey preserve. Ghana now has a number of nature preserves. You can see why I decided not to take a camera on that trip. After the seminar concluded, everybody dispersed, and at that point I started the second part of my trip, which was retracing my old haunts and old routes in Ghana, starting with Cape Coast and some of the installations of the Holy Cross Brothers, and ending in Ndrobo, which is where I did my Peace Corps service. On the advice of people who had been back to Ghana before, this time I traveled in style with an air-conditioned car and a driver, Ibrahim, not only a superb driver, but a tour guide, translator, and mother hen. We stayed in a series of travelers' hotels that were clean but not luxurious. We ate Ghana chop. One of the efforts I wanted to make after the seminar was over was to visit the Holy Cross missions in Ghana, St. Edward's University, where I have taught for many years as a Holy Cross institution. So the first one we visited was in Cape Coast. I love the vegetation. I especially like these tall, skinny trees. I don't remember ever seeing those in the 1960s. This is a statue of Brother Andre, the first saint to come out of the Holy Cross Order. And this is the chapel. Proceeded to Sekindi Takulani, where several of the brothers showed me around the town. This is a view of the harbor, which used to be very important in Ghana during World War II, but you can see it's pretty deserted now. It's replaced by Tema near Accra. These are my guides. The Brothers Compound in Sacred D also has beautiful grounds. This is another lovely indoor-outdoor chapel. This Holy Cross installation has not only academic schools but trade schools. And enthusiastic students. The highlight of the trip was to return to New Drobo, the town I had lived in 40 years before. This is the main street of New Drobo. It's paved, it's divided. I was staying in a hotel room on the 4th floor of a bank building. When I lived in the town, there were no banks and no floors above the first floor. It's become a much larger, thriving town. In contrast to when I lived there, when this was the main road through New Drobo. The school now is also a real school, with master's houses, a school bus, an assembly hall, buildings under construction. The school also has a large faculty who didn't know quite what to think when I crashed a faculty meeting in the morning. Contrast that to the school that existed 40 years before. This is our house when we lived there 40 years ago. This is the same house today. At first I wasn't even able to find the house. It's deteriorated quite a bit, but it's actually pretty remarkable that it's still standing at all. I was lucky enough to meet the family that lives in the house now. This, of course, is their courtyard. And they wanted to fix themselves up and pose for a family photograph, which they did. Over the years, I had lost track with everybody I knew in Naudrobo, and when I went back, even though I brought lots of photographs and things of that sort from 40 years ago, I couldn't really locate people I knew. There was, however, one man I found who was a master at the school. He's the person in the white shirt, Mr. Amwakwata. This is a secondary school as it existed 40 years before. I finally found that building, still in use now as an elementary school. It hadn't changed much. It still looks pretty much the same. When the children saw my camera, they were very enthusiastic about it.
Some of the primary school girls.
I'm not entirely sure what I learned from this trip. I was struck by the changes in Ghana. There's more people, more cars, greater prosperity. I saw very few dogs and cats. Men wear traditional dress now only for funerals. The children no longer follow me around shouting, "Boni mame kapre." But some things don't change, just as a kid screaming into the camera. I guess you can go home again, but it's not always pleasant. I was thrilled to hear Twi being spoken again, to smell the wood fires in Ghana Chop, and see the greater prosperity. I always felt safe. There's some ethnic violence in the north, but there's not really any in the rest of the country. That's probably it. I probably will never go back to Ghana, but I'm very glad I went back a second time.